Well, welcome everyone to NCVLI's Rise, Rights in Action, the difference a lawyer can make. This is a live series to create awareness of victims' rights, highlighting the legal work of our Rise clinics, and to discuss how NCVLI supports attorneys across the country as they fight for victims to ensure that victims have a voice in justice. So we're here live every Thursday, the third Wednesday of every month. And we're speaking with different legal partners across the country, really just highlighting the work that they're doing around engaging, elevating, enforcing, and activating victims' rights. The National Crime Victim Law Institute fields thousands of technical assistance requests annually, and we encourage anyone who has a challenge, a question, or curiosity about victims' rights, and they don't know where to turn, please turn to NCVLI. The legal staff, the Rise Clinic partners that we have across the country can help you, are willing to help you, and have a tremendous amount of resources. So we're excited because today we're going to Los Angeles, California, and we have Stephanie Richard from the Loyola Law School's Rise Clinic with us. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your clinic and the good work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I am a lawyer with 15 years experience representing crime victims. And the area that I specialized in is human trafficking survivors, both sex and labor, U.S. citizens and foreign nationals. And we've always tried to serve crime victims comprehensively. So both working as crime victims' rights attorneys and also on what we call collateral civil matters. So I've worked in immigration and civil court as well. Federal and state, yeah. And then just a little bit about the Rise Clinic at Loyola Law School. I believe that of the Rise clinics, we are the only one that's law school based. And we do serve victims of violent crime in the clinic and train law students in how to represent clients who've experienced violence in a trauma-informed, client-centered way. We also are really trying to send the message out that crime victims look differently, and we're trying to serve underrepresented communities as well as crime victims who have been defendants, who often are not recognized or even will speak about their own victimization and the Rise Clinic. And then the last thing I want to say is that in the Rise Clinic, we are seeking to have 3 attorneys in the courtroom when there's a criminal case so that victims have equal representation. But at Loyola, we also really want to engage and be part of the criminal justice reform movement that really says that our traditional criminal justice system re-victimizes victims and doesn't really keep anyone safe. And so we want, as a law school, to be part of the dialogue to raise survivor voices up for how defendants can be held accountable and communities can be safer by using different, more restorative and transformative justice processes, and actually saying you could have a lawyer represent you in that process as well.
Yeah, you do have this great but unique model. So it's not just the great lawyers that you have through the Rise Clinic, but you have this amazing ability to really train and educate so many other lawyers, which is incredible. So obviously we appreciate confidentiality prohibits you from sharing a lot of details, but can you tell us about a recent case or a recent situation that you navigated via the Rise Clinic on behalf of a client?
Yeah, so every case we have as a victims' rights attorney is new and exciting, given that usually the judge, the prosecutor, and the criminal defense counsel doesn't know who we are. But we were recently working on a case where a defendant was transferred from traditional criminal court to mental competency hearings. And so it was very important to the crime victim that we represented, who was a victim of attempted murder, that she understand that full process. And myself and the student attorneys filed our formal notice of appearance, indicating that we were representing the crime victim as part of the competency hearings. And immediately, the defense counsel said they don't have a right to be here or to speak. And the good news was the judge said, well, I think they have a right to be here. Now, I don't know if they have a right to speak. I'm sure, counsel, that you can brief us on that issue. And so we're in the process right now of briefing the court on why, even in a competency hearing, there's an impact on like relief for the crime victim and why victims should have a right in that process. Another interesting issue we've been dealing with is that we are representing victims, family members who have been victims of homicide. And what we're finding is a grave injustice with our LA coroner's office, who is not providing proper language access to monolingual speakers. And as we know, when you have a family member who has been a victim of a crime that leads to their death, understanding what happened in that case is so important. And we've just been shocked that the autopsy reports that are provided for family members are not translated, and that we have also received a lot of pushback from interpreters explaining the autopsy reports to victims' family. And so again, although this is informal advocacy, not in the criminal courtroom, we do feel like we can hopefully lead to systemic change with the coroner's office in treating all family members who might not have a crime victims lawyer attached more humanely and just with the rights they actually have under our federal and state law.
Yeah, I mean, that strikes at the heart of being treated with dignity and respect, right? Like, it's so important that information is delivered in a manner that can be received and digested and properly, and in trauma-informed ways. So obviously those are really complex cases, right? Especially the hearing on the front end. So talk to us about what would that have been like for that victim had they not had you, right? Like, without an attorney who knows how to brief the court and who could even just assert that when in court, the outcome for that victim would have been so different. So talk about how important it is to really have that lawyer there because of all the expertise and the knowledge that you have.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you're a victim of a violent crime, the process of healing and moving toward recovery is always going to be different and difficult, and has to be done on a victim survivor's own terms. But I do feel like, having represented crime victims for 15 years, knowledge and information and setting appropriate expectations about what could happen, what might be difficult, and what that individual can and can't expect from the prosecutor and the criminal court system, and providing legal advice around how a victim might be able to assert his, her, or their rights, can be part of the healing process. Because as we know, trauma-informed care is about giving people options and choices and giving them space to do things on their own terms. And a lot of times our criminal justice system doesn't do that. And the prosecutor, often focused on the criminal conviction, doesn't have the time and is not able to provide legal advice to the crime victim.
So that's such an important point, because so often it is assumed, or it's a given, right, that the prosecutor represent the victim. And that's just not the case, because there's so many different reasons why they can't fully and appropriately and ethically represent the victim. So let's talk about NCVLI. Were you able to utilize NCVLI and any of their resources in navigating some of these cases and the complexities of them? And what was that?
Yes. So I discovered NCVLI 10 years ago, I think, and this is when I really knew nothing about crime victims' rights. And it was in the context of having a prosecutor not order the mandatory restitution for my 9 human trafficking victim clients who had just gone through a 2-week trial. And NCVLI was like the same night came back to me with a legal memo so that I was able to make an oral argument in federal court that day to hold open the sentencing so that we could fully brief the court on the restitution that these victims wanted. And so that was my first experience with NCVLI. And I can't tell you how many other times they provided me that really technical legal research and understanding so that I can either write a motion in a way that, because I practice in so many areas of law, I probably wouldn't be able to do myself, and or make that immediate oral argument when victims' rights issues come up unexpectedly.
That's awesome. So this is kind of a no-brainer, but would you recommend NCVLI as a resource to folks out there who might be in a similar situation, or might be in a situation where they don't really know a lot about victims' rights, but they know something is not going right in like the case that they're working in?
Yeah, so what I want to say about victims' rights practice is that I believe that every attorney, no matter what area of law you practice in, immigration and housing and benefits, right, can, if they're representing vulnerable communities, be looking at, are there crime victims' rights issues? And because, the RISE project, there's only 14 of them out there, and there's probably only a handful of attorneys across the country. It's only going to be when attorneys step out of their comfort area of their traditional practice and really say, this is part of representing this client in a holistic way, that we'll really see crime victims more fully represented in the criminal process. And I do feel like, and I work with a lot of pro bono attorneys from big firms as well, that people get scared of the criminal process, especially if they've been more involved in the civil process. And so what I want to say is that NCVLI will make it less scary and will help you practice in an area that you might not be as familiar with, and do so in a competent way. And the other thing I just want to say is, if you don't do that, no one else will be there doing it.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So where can people find you? Where can they find your clinic? If they need help in Los Angeles County, where can they go?
Yeah, so you can just Google Loyola Law School RISE Clinic and go to our homepage, and our information is there. We are a low volume clinic, so I just want to say we take referrals from partners who in their most complex cases. So our intake line is not publicly available, but you can find me and email me with any questions in the Los Angeles area.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, again, Stephanie, thank you not only for what you've historically done for underrepresented victims and survivors, but for what you're doing now and really just changing the face of legal representation in Los Angeles. So we're incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. And that's going to wrap up this month's edition of The Difference a Lawyer Can Make. To learn more about NCVLI and our RISE clinics, please go to ncvli.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you.